Hey, what's up? It's Dee. Well, future's past. Here to show you something pretty cool. So I collect antiques, anything old, anything that basically has something to do with the past. I just love. So I saw this on eBay and I just had to have it. I collect antique photographs, and mostly the ones I really enjoy collecting are ones from around the 1860s, 1870s era. I generally look for Civil War time frame photographs, and I was able to find this book. Now, unfortunately, it's not from the Civil War in America, but it's from the time frame in England. And so this very old leather bound album, as you can see, it's quite lovely. Look how beautiful the workmanship on this old book is. Now it's tattered and old, but nonetheless, it's really held up over all this time. So let's begin by showing you some of the pictures that came in it. And so we have, some of them have names on it. This is D.H. Scott, and he was age 9. Age 9. We have, this one was dated September 1870. And look at the really cool hairstyles they had back then. Look at that beautiful braid, the coronetta braids on top of her head. And the jewelry. I really, really like old antique Victorian or Civil War era jewelry. I actually collect that too. I pretty much collect everything that's old. This person's name is Mrs. Leach. Look at her beautiful gown. Now, a lot of these pictures are from the 1860s, although this one, for example, is probably 1870s. You can tell by the hairstyle. But this one here is definitely an 1860s photograph. And look at the dress. That's Chantilly lace. It was like a black lace. Look at how enormous her skirt is. And look at that beautiful bonnet. And she has a book over here. Now, that usually signified either they were religious. A lot of times, if you see someone posing with books, that meant that they were religious, because it would be a Bible, or it meant that they were educated. And for women, that was an anomaly. A lot of women really weren't meant to go to school. They were more meant to be mothers and house, people that took care of the household. Look at her jewelry. Look at that really cool bracelet. She's wearing gloves. So Mrs. Leach, actually, she appears to be very wealthy. You could tell by the clothing. Now, the Chantilly lace dress was not cheap during that time frame. Then we have another lady. She's, she doesn't have an identification, but look at that gown. Isn't that gown amazing? And this is another 1860s photograph. Now, this is Lady Bentinck. Bentinck. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Apparently, I did a little research on her, and she was one of the wealthiest women in England. And she had also connections to Scotland, like the Glasgow area. And there was a scandal. She eloped. She was married, but she eloped with a gentleman by the last name of Bentinck. And that was a huge scandal back in the day. Now, she has ties to Queen Elizabeth. I believe that was her grandmother. I believe Lady Bentinck was Queen Elizabeth's grandmother. I'm not 100% sure, but there is ties to royalty with this lady. And apparently I read something stating that she was pretty much of a grouchy woman. She was opinionated and was always in a bad mood. But she was very, very rich. There's another photo of her. And here on the back of the photograph, it's marked Lady Bentinck. And here she is again. Same lady. Now, I believe she died sometime in 1875 or something, around that time frame. So this is towards the end of her life. As you can see, she is quite elderly. Look at that hat. That is pretty cool. And she doesn't look too amused. And she should have been. She was equivalent to, like, she had riches equivalent in today's money of like $150 million. I'd be smiling in that picture. This gentleman we have right here, again, he looks very wealthy. So this is probably a family that has royal ties. This was probably their photo album. I don't know how it ended up in the U.S., but it did. And look at this dour-faced gentleman. He has a hint of a smile. Maybe he wasn't such a crab. And again, so these are like 1860s photo. Look at the Wow, look at the furniture. How pretty cool that was. And this child is posing next to books, again, showing he was a wealthier person. He was educated. There's a beautiful old bust there. Then we have a mother with a non-amused looking child, and taking photographs back then was a pretty unhappy thing for children. It wasn't like today with our cameras, point and shoot, and the photos taken. It took quite a while, and they had to sit still for a long time. So a lot of times you don't see too many people smiling in these old photos because it was pretty much torture taking photos in a studio. Here's another very wealthy looking woman. You can tell by her gown. And another wealthy gentleman with his top hat and his cane. Wow, look at her bonnet. That's really cool. And her dress is really quite beautiful. I see a lot of Chantilly lace. Again, that was very expensive fabric. So these people, again, were wealthy people. And these are 1860s photos for sure. Again, we have 1860s photos. Most of the photos in this book are from the 1860s time frame. And I think she's holding a book here. We have a mother and non-amused child. Again, we got the books signifying wealth and education and possibly religion. We have a beautiful little child here posing. A family. What is that? Is that a purse? Wow, pretty neat. More children. It appears that they wouldn't sit still for the photo, and it looks like the parent, maybe the mother, had given them things to keep busy. So I see a horse whip in the girl on the right side's photo, and the little girl on the left is holding some kind of like pocket watch on a chain, and that's probably the only way they can get the kids to behave for the photograph. This is another beautiful child. This one looks about 1870s to me. And these are definitely 1860s time frame photos. Look at that big, beautiful Grecian urn and that gown. Look at the clothing they wore. Absolutely amazing. I like to look at the old furniture also in these photos. It was quite interesting to see what was in style back then. Look at that old chair. Now this is probably an 1870s photo. I could tell by the clothing. Women's dresses got more narrow. They weren't as bell-shaped as the 1860s time frame and the 1850s time frame. Now these are definitely 1860s. Again, we have another Grecian urn in the photo. That was a very popular type of decorative accessory in the home back then. This looks like 1870s perhaps. That guy looks pretty badass. Look at the lady's headdress. Wow, nice hat. And again, these people were definitely wealthy. Clothing was not cheap back then. This guy may be a reverend. I see a collar. Or maybe that's just a jabot. It was like a little scarf they wore, like a tie. That lady's beautiful. Look at her necklace with the cross. That's great. Look at this one. Look at that hat and that dress. Here's again, a non-amused child sitting in a chair. And this looks like, what's that guy's name from A Christmas Carol? Ebenezer Scrooge. That's my idea of what Ebenezer Scrooge would have looked like back then. Pretty clothes they had. Maybe that's Ebenezer Scrooge's wife. Look at the Sartouche braids going around her outfit. Again, another 1860s clothing style. This is a cute picture. Look, a kid actually smiling. They probably had to bribe the kid to smile. Probably said, hey, we'll get you some candy after the picture. That's really a lovely photo. And we're almost coming to a conclusion here. This kid, wow, look at the hair. And she's holding a doll. Too bad I can't see the detail on the doll because I collect antique dolls. Looks like a China head doll from the 1860s or so, 1870s. Look at the jewelry. That's amazing. That's an 1870s photo, I believe, by the hairstyle. I could be wrong. It could be 1860s. That's 1860s. You can tell by the hairstyle. Ladies used to wear their hair parted down the center like that. Look at her dress. How beautiful. Look at the jewelry. And this child is gorgeous. What a gorgeous, gorgeous little girl. Probably 1870s. And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And I have plenty more antique photo albums from this time frame to show you guys. So stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button and the bell. And you'll see more videos shortly. Take care.